Welcome back to the quarterly call. All content is for informational purposes and is not investment advice. Please consult with an investment professional.
Hey everyone, and welcome. We've been looking through the latest materials you sent over.
That's right. Specifically, the transcript from a major tech company's recent earnings call from May 28th, covering their Q1 fiscal 26 results.
And our plan today is, cut through the jargon, find the really impactful stuff, the key numbers, the big topics.
Exactly. Give you a clear picture of their performance and, maybe more importantly, the outlook, especially around all this AI infrastructure build-out. It's basically a shortcut to getting up to speed.
Okay, so let's dive in. First up, the overall Q1 performance. How did things look?
Honestly, really strong. The numbers were impressive. Total revenue hit $44 billion.
$44 billion. Wow, and how does that compare?
That's up 69% compared to the same quarter last year. 69%.
Huge leap. And they hit this even with, headwinds.
Yeah, they mentioned exceeding their own expectations, even in what they called a challenging environment. And I imagine the data center segment was a big part of that story.
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely the main engine. But data center revenue was $39 billion.
$39 billion just from data center.
Yep. And that itself was up 73% year on year. So massive growth there.
Okay, so strong numbers overall. But there's a pretty significant shadow hanging over this, wasn't there? The China export controls.
Yes, that's a really critical piece here, a major factor. The files lay out these new U.S. government export controls from April 9th this year.
And they specifically targeted a product for China, right?
Yeah.
H20.
Exactly. H20 GPU designed for that market. And the financial impact was, immediate.
How so?
Well, they actually recognized $4.6 billion in H20 revenue before those April 9th controls kicked in. So revenue booked.
But then the rules changed.
Right. And because they couldn't ship orders, they already had on the books orders received before April 9th, they had to take a $4.5 billion charge.
$4.5 billion for what exactly?
Inventory write-downs and purchase obligations.
Yeah.
Basically, commitments tied to those orders they could no longer fulfill.
Ouch. And did they mention revenue they just couldn't ship?
They did. They pointed to $2.5 billion in H20 revenue that was just stuck in Q1. Couldn't go out the door because of the new rules.
So a direct hit in the quarter. What about the bigger picture, the strategic view? Losing access to China's AI market.
They were pretty blunt about it in the materials. They see it as having a material adverse impact long-term.
Material adverse. Okay. Did they quantify that market?
They estimate the China AI accelerator market could grow to nearly $50 billion. Losing access, they said, doesn't just hurt them, it actively benefits foreign competitors.
Right. Both competitors inside China and elsewhere.
Exactly. So it's not just about lost sales now. It's about their competitive standing in this huge, growing AI space.
And the outlook for Q2, the current quarter, reflects this pretty starkly.
It certainly does. The guidance anticipates a, quote, meaningful decrease in China data center revenue.
Meaningful decrease meaning?
They expect to lose approximately $8 billion in H20 revenue just in Q2 because of these controls.
$8 billion. That really shows the scale of what that product line represented in China.
It really does. And navigating this, it sounds incredibly tough. They mentioned looking at limited options to, comply but still compete somehow.
But the path forward seems difficult based on the files.
Very difficult, given how tight the controls are described. It effectively removed a huge chunk of business very quickly.
Okay, so that's the major challenge. But flipping to the other side, there's clearly massive momentum elsewhere. They talked a lot about the Blackwell era.
Yes, and the ramp-up of Blackwell, their new architecture, described as the fastest ramp in the company's history.
Fastest ever. Did they back that up?
Well, the numbers suggest it. Blackwell apparently contributed nearly 70% of their data center compute revenue just in Q1. 70%.
Already. So the transition from Hopper, the previous generation, is basically done.
Almost complete is how they put it. A very rapid shift.
And they highlighted a specific system, the GB200 NVL.
Right, calling it a fundamental architectural change. It's designed, they said, for data center scale AI. The goal is achieving the lowest cost per inference token.
Inference being running the models. And these systems are available now.
Generally available, yes, the GB200 systems.
And the scale of deployment, I saw a number that jumped out, these big cloud providers, the hyperscalers.
Yeah, that was striking. On average, major hyperscalers are deploying nearly 1,000 of these NVL72 racks per week.
1,000 racks a week. How many GPUs is that?
An NVL72 rack has 72 Blackwell GPUs. So do the math. That's around 72,000 Blackwell GPUs per week.
72,000 GPUs a week.
And they're apparently on track to increase that output this quarter. They mentioned Microsoft and OpenAI specifically, ramping up deployments towards, tens and eventually hundreds of thousands of these systems.
Incredible scale. And they're already talking about the next step, Blackwell Ultra.
Already on it. Blackwell Ultra, or the GB300 systems. Sampling started recently.
And production shipments.
Expected later this quarter, Q2. They stress it's a drop-in design.
Meaning it uses the same footprint, same specs as the GB200.
Exactly. Leverages the existing architecture.
Yeah.
Which, helps customers transition smoothly and helps manufacturing yield.
Makes sense. And the GPU itself, the B300, has upgrades.
It does. 50% more HBM. That high bandwidth memory crucial for big AI models.
Okay.
And a 50% boost in a specific type of inference performance. Dense FP4 compute. They're clearly on a fast, annual upgrade cycle, mapping out products well into 2028.
So all this new hardware, what's driving this absolutely immense demand? The file is pointed to a surge in inference.
Yes, this is a really key theme. Inference, actually using the trained AI models, the demand for that has just jumped dramatically.
And it's linked to a new kind of AI model, reasoning AI.
Exactly. These aren't just spitting out answers. They're designed to sort of think step by step.
Like humans.
A bit, yeah. They plan, they use tools, they reason through problems. But because of that process,
they need more compute power.
Way more. Hundreds, maybe thousands of times more compute per task compared to older models.
And that's the step function surge in inference demand they talked about.
Precisely. And crucially, the scaling laws we saw in training AI, bigger models needing way more power, that now applies to inference too.
So running these complex reasoning models effectively requires just massive compute scale dedicated to inference.
Got it. Which leads back to the GB200 NVL72.
Ah, because they pitched it as the ideal engine for this.
Right. Offering much higher speed and throughput than the last generation. All aimed at driving down inference cost while making the AI better and faster.
Did they give concrete examples of this inference scale?
Yeah, a couple of really interesting ones. Microsoft processed over 100 trillion tokens in Q1 for Azure OpenAI services.
100 trillion?
Yep, a 5-fold increase year over year. And they mentioned inference startups tripling their token generation and their revenues by using the B200 for these high-value reasoning tasks.
Wow. So the demand is real and growing fast. And then they introduced another term, agentic AI.
Yeah, kind of the next evolution from generative AI. They described agentic AI as systems that can perceive, reason, plan, and act.
Perceive, reason, plan, act. So more autonomous.
Essentially, yeah. The vision they painted is almost like a new digital workforce.
And they're building tools for this. Models like Llama and Nematron.
Right. Open reasoning models for enterprises.
Yeah.
Packages these NIMs and NVIDIA inference microservices. They highlighted post-training tweaks that boosted accuracy by 20% and made inference 5 times faster.
And are businesses actually using these underlying services like Nemo?
Definitely seems like it. They named Cisco, NASDAQ, Shell.
Okay.
Cisco reported a 40% accuracy jump and 10x faster responses for an AI coding assistant. NASDAQ saw 30% improvements for search. Shell, 30% better accuracy for a custom model.
So tangible results.
Yeah, and even in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Companies like CrowdStrike using the platform reported things like twice as fast detection triage and cutting compute costs by half. It really shows AI embedding into core business operations.
Okay, moving from the what of AI to the where. They talked about AI factories accelerating.
Yeah, that's a central idea now. These purpose-built AI data centers. The files said there are nearly 100 NVIDIA-powered AI factories in flight globally.
In flight, meaning being built or planned.
Exactly. And that number itself is double what it was a year ago.
Wow, doubling year over year.
And not just more factories, but bigger ones too. The average number of GPUs per factory is also doubling.
More and bigger. And this scale is opening up entirely new growth areas for them.
That's the argument. They outlined several new growth engines. First one, sovereign AI.
Sovereign AI, meaning countries building their own AI.
Pretty much. Countries treating AI capability like essential national infrastructure, like electricity or the internet.
And this is happening now.
They listed a whole bunch of examples announced or underway: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Taiwan, Sweden, Japan, Korea, India, Canada, France, the UK, Germany, Italy, Spain. It's a global trend they see as a major new growth driver.
Okay, sovereign AI, what's the next engine?
Enterprise AI. This is about bringing AI inside companies, often on their own premises where their sensitive data lives.
Right, not just in the cloud.
Exactly. So they highlighted new products aimed at this, like the RTX PRO server, DGX Barks, DGX Station. Designed for enterprise IT needs integrating compute, storage, networking,
Got it. And a third engine.
industrial AI. This connects to trends like reshoring manufacturing. New factories need new AI.
AI for factories. How?
Robotics, automation, digital twins. They mentioned their Omniverse platform for simulations and Isaac GR00 for robotics.
Example.
Yeah, like TSMC using Omniverse to speed up factory design, Foxconn running simulations faster, Pegatron cutting assembly line defects. They even talked about a foundation model, Isaac GR00TN1, specifically for humanoid robots.
Humanoid robots, seriously.
That's the vision. Billions of robots and autonomous systems being developed, powered by AI.
Okay, so summing that up, the inference surge plus sovereign AI plus enterprise AI plus industrial AI.
Those are the four drivers they say are turbocharging growth.
Makes sense. Let's quickly cover networking, too. That also looks strong.
Very strong. Revenue is up 64% just quarter over quarter. Hit $5 billion.
$5 billion from networking, and what's in that bucket?
Several platforms. NVLink, which scales up compute inside a system high bandwidth. They called it a new growth vector. Then InfiniBand, the traditional high-performance option, and Spectrum X.
Spectrum X sounded like a big deal in the notes.
It really does. They called it Enhanced Ethernet for AI. Adds features like low latency, congestion control, basically making standard Ethernet work much better for AI traffic.
And it's taken off.
Seems so. They called it a home run, said it's already annualizing over $8 billion in revenue.
$8 billion run rate already.
Yeah, and they added big names like Google Cloud and Meta as customers this quarter. Plus, they're bringing in silicon photonics switches for even bigger, more efficient AI factories.
Okay, so data center and networking are booming. Quick check on the other segments. Gaming, ProViz, auto.
Yeah, quick updates there. Gaming and AI PCs hit record revenue. Blackwell architecture is coming to mainstream GPUs and laptops eventually. They mentioned a Nintendo Switch 2 collaboration using AI features.
Interesting.
Pro visualization demand is up for AI workstations. And automotive grew significantly year on year. Self-driving, NAV systems, partnerships like GM and Mercedes moving into production.
Got it. So bringing it all together, financials, outlook for Q2.
Gross margins were strong, though. That China charge took a slight bite in Q1. They're aiming for mid-70s% later in the year. Operating expenses are climbing as they invest heavily.
Makes sense, given the opportunity.
And they returned a record amount to shareholders, $14.3 billion in Q1, via buybacks and dividends.
And the Q2 revenue guidance.
$45 billion, plus or minus 2%.
And importantly, that $45 billion includes the big drop from China H20 revenue.
Correct. They confirm the outlook reflects that significant decline. But they still expect modest sequential growth overall, driven mainly by that incredibly fast Blackwell ramp continuing.
Wow. Okay, that covers a huge amount of ground. From the headline financials and that very significant China export control impact.
Right, to the sheer speed of the Blackwell rollout. This explosion in inference demand fueled by reasoning AI and this idea of agentic AI.
And then the strategic push into AI factories globally and these new growth engines, sovereign AI, enterprise AI, industrial AI. It's a lot.
It really paints a complex picture. You have these major geopolitical headwinds on one side, but on the other, just unprecedented demand and the creation of entirely new markets driven by AI becoming, well, essential infrastructure.
That shift to more complex AI needing massive scale seems undeniable, and this global race to build the infrastructure is clearly heating up.
Across countries, across industries, it's happening fast.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening, thinking about this massive build-out and this push towards agentic AI. Given this momentum, this vision of AI that can perceive, reason, plan, and act, how quickly do you think these AI agents will start changing how you actually work and interact with tech every single day? Something to ponder. Thank you so much for tuning into the Quarterly Call. For more episodes, please remember to rate and follow our show. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.